back to another episode of the Higher Level podcast. As always, joined with myself is Higher Level head coach James Doolan, and we have a special guest on the show tonight. We have the Russian Hammer himself, Artem Lobov. Artem, thank you very much for giving us some time, mate. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to chat to you.
How's things going, Artem, at the moment? I think you're probably in the same position as the rest of us, stuck in lockdown at the moment.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, and I think on Sunday, it was announced here in Ireland that the lockdown has been kind of more strict now than it was before. We're only allowed to leave the house within 2 kilometers radius of the house. Basically encouraged to stay indoors even more so. I heard there's been guards or police outside, checking, stopping people, asking where they're going, making sure that people are only leaving the houses when they really, really need to. So we're just on the lockdown right now.
So how long, I'm trying to work out the difference between where you are at and where we are. How long have you been in lockdown now?
It's been a couple of weeks, but before that, it wasn't as strict. For example, now they closed down the parks and basically anywhere where people can gather in groups. Whereas the previous week, we were still able to, for example, I was meeting with my coach, just me and him, 2 of us in a park, and I could do, some pads. We kind of been doing this prior to everything escalating, and we just, stayed doing it. He didn't really have any interaction with anyone else, and neither did I. So it was okay just for us to meet and then kind of do it. But now that they made this, they've taken even stricter measures. We had to cancel that, and I can't even do that anymore. The parks are closed, so I just, stuck to doing some shady little home workouts.
So I think Ireland is probably maybe a week or so ahead of us, I think, James. Would that be right?
We were a week in, I think, a week today exactly. But a lot of guys, we shut the gym 2 weeks ago and stuff. A lot of guys were a few days ahead. It was suggested lockdown first, remember, and then it was like, right, now it's an actual lockdown. But I think we'll be getting the same as Ireland. I think they'll make it stricter pretty soon because there still seems to be guys going to parks and treating it like summer holidays and shit.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was like in Scotland, but I know England, they were really late reacting to all this. I mean, we were already in lockdown, and I've seen pictures of videos of pubs being full in England and concerts still taking place, and just basically not really caring at all about it. And then of course they did to the lockdown. So I'm just wondering, how was it in Scotland? Was it the same as England situation, or?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we're sort of timeline wise the same as England, and some of our parks and beaches, because the weather was not too bad, had probably the biggest and busiest days, which flabbergasted me. I mean, I don't know about, I think we've all got young kids here. That's what my worry was. So I was taking it seriously early on, but. I'm assuming you can attest to this, James. It was crazy here, wasn't it? People just didn't seem to be listening.
I thought it was just a day off work, I think, because a lot of the businesses and that have closed, and so people were just treating it like I'm off work. And it was like the first day of sunshine this year as well, which didn't help. So everyone just kind of flocked to the countryside and stuff. But I was the same as you. I started taking it more serious a couple of weeks ago when I noticed that other places were. You could tell it was only a matter of time before stuff was going to start getting more severe here.
Yeah, it's been we've been speaking about it in all the podcasts, but I think we're probably pretty much all in the same boat. I've never really experienced anything like this in my life. Nothing to this where it's such a global thing. It's affecting every day and every walk of life. It's crazy times at the moment.
Yeah, it's weird.
And you were saying there about you, so you're a bit further in than us then, Artem. So are you managing to stay sane in the house at the moment? I think me and James were speaking off camera. We're struggling already a weekend.
Yeah, it has to be done, just I have to just, put up with it and just stay inside. And because, as much as I hate to do it, but, if you don't do it, then it's going to last longer. So you might as well just, stay indoors and then let this all blow over and then get back to normal life.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of leads us into the next thing. Obviously, a lot of MMA, a lot of fight shows have been affected. There's a fight show coming to Dublin in August. Now, I know you've spoke about potentially wanting to get on that show in a one-fight deal. Do you think that's still a possibility with everything going on at the moment?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I must say one thing. Like I kind of was trying to see what I'm going to do and plan for the future. But I've just given up now on doing that. I just take it one day at a time because things just change so quick. One day I thought that everything was going to blow over quick, but now it doesn't seem that way. Everything seems to be prolonging. And so I just literally take it one day at a time. But, of course, I would still love to do it. I mean, it's the UFC, it's the pinnacle of the sport. So, and like I said, that fight with Zubair Tukhugov it's a must fight for me. I want that fight no matter what. I want that fight, doesn't matter where it takes place, under what banner. I don't want any money for it. I will donate every cent from that fight, to charity. As I said, to me that fight is personal. So I want that put away.
And I guess that's the only thing with the UFC is potentially the stumbling block, because you've quite stated that you would only want to sign a one-fight deal, because obviously we'll come on to the bare knuckle stuff in a second, but you're doing very well out there. You've come out and spoken, says financially you're benefiting from out with the UFC. So could that be the biggest stumbling block, just a one-fight deal?
Yeah, that's the thing, for me, because I'm making a lot of money outside of the UFC, and of course, I'm thankful to UFC for that, because this is the reason I am making the money now, because I'm a UFC vet. You couldn't come out of any other organization and say, oh, I'm a vet of this organization or the other, and demand more money. That just wouldn't happen. But if you're a UFC vet, if you're Ultimate Fighter vet, that demands a higher pay, and so of course that's I'm thankful to UFC for that. Having said that, I want to be able to fight freely. I want to be able to fight, in boxing. I want to be able to fight in bare knuckle. I want to be able to fight in MMA. Having those options allows me to negotiate for higher pays, because I'm not just confined to one organization, which normally would be the case where if you said, oh, I don't want the money, that's not enough money or whatever, they'll just tell you, well, just sit and wait then, and you have no really say. So whereas now I'm not in that position. If someone tells me we won't pay you that, I say, okay, that's no problem. I go elsewhere, I go to another sport even if I want to. And that, of course, is a good situation to be in. It allows me to demand better paydays.
Yeah, for a lot of guys when they come out of the UFC, it can be career-wise, it can be very difficult for them. But you seem to have been able to just grow your brand since you come out of the UFC, which you don't see very often. But was it eye-opening for you when you left the UFC and you saw what else was out there for you?
Absolutely, yeah. And the bare knuckle, I was a little bit lucky with that this new sport, was right on the block, and it was something that suited me really, really well. It's a short fight. You just have to be tough, and you just have to throw a lot of punches. That's kind of the essence of those bare knuckle fights. Even you can be a very technical boxer, and you might not do well there, because somebody that's, let's say, powerful and with decent cardio and is just going at you and throwing a million punches a second, that it's very hard to deal with. Normally in a boxing fight, how you would deal with that is you just cover up, which is easier to do with the gloves, and then the guy eventually tires out and then you take over. But here you haven't got a chance for the guy to tire out, because the round is only 2 minutes long and there's only 5 of them. So a style like that works pretty well. And I've been reaping the benefits of that.
How different is the training for bare knuckle, Artem, like compared to even just normal boxing? Just really a case of getting super fit.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, it's getting super fit and getting the right type of fitness. My very first fight, I didn't kind of prepare right for it. I was just taking the boxing approach, and I was doing more rounds. I was doing 3-minute rounds, and I was doing, instead of 5 rounds, I was doing 8 rounds sometimes. 9, 10 rounds, which wasn't the right way, because then the spar takes the shape of a marathon rather than a sprint. And the bare knuckle fight is a sprint. So then I adjusted that, and then I just prepared for being able to just sprint for 2 minutes, recover fast in the 1 minute, and then sprint again.
Yeah, you seem to have, did you foresee kind of 2019 seemed to be the year for bare knuckle? You seem to catch the crest of that wave that happened. When you signed with bare knuckle, did you expect it to explode that way it did? Obviously, you played a part in that with that fight with Jason Knight, which was insane to watch. But did you foresee it exploding the way it did?
No, I definitely didn't expect that. I was just kind of didn't really know what to expect. Just the money was good, so I thought, right, I'll give it a go. But I think the reason for such success is the fact that MMA has gotten so big. It's a mainstream sport now, and there's many people that don't really enjoy the grappling aspect of it, the wrestling and grappling aspect of it, because it's one area where it requires a lot of knowledge to actually appreciate it and understand it and enjoy it. And many people don't have that knowledge yet because the sport is still quite young. Whereas when there's two guys punching each other in the face, well, everyone can understand that. Everybody knows what's happening there. Once they see the blood, they see, one guy landing, the other guy landing, that's it. That sells. So as a result, all those people that were complaining about the grappling and wrestling and the boring fights, they straight away switched their attention to bare knuckle, because I haven't seen a boring bare knuckle fight yet. It's very hard for it to be boring. It's the rounds are short. There's, people aren't afraid to get tired, and they just go for it. So it got a niche following right now, but they're doing well.
Yeah, they certainly are. And one thing, obviously, for maybe people looking at bare knuckle, the cuts and everything, it can look pretty brutal. But for you, after, let's say, the first Jason Knight fight, what was the recovery like for you, just through the cuts in the face and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, the cuts on the face, they healed very quick. The worst thing was my hands. Mm-hmm. My hands, I actually, luckily, somehow I didn't break anything in my hands. I don't know how that happened. I was literally telling the doctor to double check and triple check those x-rays, because I was like, man, my hands were so swollen and they were just in agony, so much pain, but nothing was broken. But they didn't heal for so long, because after that fight, I had to go into a camp to train for Paulie Malignaggi fight. And that whole camp, I couldn't spar and I couldn't even hit pads. The whole camp, I couldn't hit pads. All I had to do was I had to wear these weights on my wrists and then just hit those little, the pole noodle kind of, things that just soft, something that had no impact. That's all I did for the whole camp. And then, of course, cardio sessions, And only the very last fight of camp, I was able to spar. And I literally got 4 spars in 1 week, just because I did no sparring the whole camp. And I was about to fight a 2-time world boxing champion. I was like, fuck, I need some spars. So even though I understood that it's not the safest way to probably approach sparring, doing, 4 spars against some of the best boxers in the world, that's not very good for the brain. But, I had to get that in just to get that experience in there, and just to get that rust off me in order to be prepared for the tough fight ahead.
Yeah, and that Paulie Malignaggi fight, obviously there was a lot leading up to that, a lot of back and forth. He done a lot of not great things. The spitting incident sticks out the most. How sweet a victory was that for you when you got your hand raised after that fight?
That was a very sweet victory. Plus, the money was so good. I got the win, I got the money, and it was a very emotional fight. It was a must win for me. So it was good. Yeah, I was in very good spirits. And plus, it was good to shut up, a lot of the people in the boxing world, because they were essentially not giving me a chance. They were like, oh, this guy is a 2-time world boxing champion. But I've sparred Conor before, and I've seen how Conor, done in that spar against him. So I knew I not simply had a chance. I knew that this was a very, very, even fight, and I was going to be able to put him away. So I was happy to get the win.
Yeah, and something else you've spoke about is obviously you're moving into professional boxing as well. I saw you post something about that. What's the current situation with that? Do you have something lined up?
Yeah, to be honest, there was guys reached out to me about maybe potentially boxing Paulie Malignaggi again, but under the boxing rules, which I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. Now with this whole coronavirus, pandemic, everything has gone quiet. But I certainly want to box. There was talks of me boxing American before. I was talking to Brave. They were willing to put it on, but that kind of didn't happen for some reason. I could box Paulie again in the boxing fight, and I'm ready to fight anyone in the boxing world. People always say like, oh no, it's completely different sport and it's going to be so uneven, but those people don't understand anything. I'm always like, well, what do you mean? Where is this coming from? Like, what is it boxers do that MMA fighters never done? Pads, have you ever seen boxer on the pads? MMA guys do the same thing. A lot of MMA guys work with boxing coaches doing, pads with just boxing pads, with hands only. Many MMA fighters, including myself, have sparred boxers on numerous occasions, and have done pretty well, So I don't know where this, notion is coming from. I can understand for a boxer going into MMA. Well, that's understandable, because how many do boxers ever wrestle? They never wrestle. Do boxers ever grapple? They've never grappled. Do they ever throw knees? No. Do they ever throw elbows? No. So there's many things that they will be doing for the first time. However, if an MMA guy is going into boxing, he has done all those things already. Yes, of course, I understand he hasn't done it enough. And of course, the advantage is probably going to be on the boxer side, but with the right preparation, an MMA guy can give a lot of trouble to a boxer,
I guess then, see, ultimately for you then, when you break it down, is it, if you're looking at it as just a fight, is it about going in there and fighting effectively?
So to me, it's a fight, and to me, especially when it's boxing, it's just going to be hands only, with bigger gloves, I don't see the issue, To me, I've done bare knuckle, I've been, kicked in the head, I've been, elbowed in the face when you're on the ground and your head have nowhere to bounce, Have you tried that? And what, you want me to be afraid of somebody, coming at me with pillows on their hands? Fuck off.
Brilliant. One actual other thing I wanted to ask you was just again on the bare knuckle. When you told your team that you were going to be fighting bare knuckle, what was the sort of reaction you got from the team?
Yeah, to be honest, just fine. My team is well used to me at this stage. Back in the day, I used to be doing crazy shit. I'd wake up, on Thursday or something and text John saying, right, John, we're flying to Poland, to take this guy on at a weight class above mine, and just, a few days notice. And so he's well used to me taking, big challenges over and over. So this was another challenge, and he knew that there's no point talking to me. That's one thing. I'm still going to do it. And, he was well used to me doing those sort of things. So they were just right, go for it. And plus, when I told them what the money was going to be, then there was no more questions to doing that. I spent my whole life fighting for 100, 200, 300, 400, euros. Like, for example, when I fought Dave Hill at the time, I was 0-1. Dave Hill was top 10 European fighter. Nobody has given me a chance. I had taken that fight on 3 days' notice. It was going to be my first time making featherweight on 3 days' notice. And I took it without a blink, and I showed up and I beat him. So after that, to me, was, what's the big deal? I go get in and get it done.
I'm sure James can come in from a coach's perspective here. I'm sure you've got a few guys in the gym like that, James, that you just need to let them do their thing.
Nobody quite like Artem, to be honest, but but you were always well known for that, man. You just fight everybody, and everybody I know that's a fighter respects fighters like that. I know you do as well. We've spoke before about guys and stuff like that, and it's kind of what coaches want out of their fighters. We were saying earlier on, they're a different breed. Fighters are different, wired different from normal people.
Yeah, but to me, because I look at other sports, and that's what happens in every other sport. Our sport is the only one where you get to choose your fucking opponent.
Yeah.
So when there's money at stake and people are allowed to choose their opponents, let's be honest, chances are they're not going to be, picking the hardest ones. But I, on the other hand, I've always gone after the hardest opponents because, if you listen to the fighters, everybody says, I want the toughest challenges. I want to be the best. I want to fight the best. Then you look at their record. Oh, really? You want to fight the best? So who the fuck are those motherfuckers you've been fighting? Where did you manage to find these guys? My fucking neighbors are tougher fights than some of those guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas I stuck to those words. I said those words and I done those words. Anytime I was offered 2 or 3 fights at the same time, I always picked the hardest one. And I did it when money was not as, I didn't do it for the money, because when I used to do it, like flying to Poland on a 2 days notice to fight a local guy who is like tough and nobody wants to fight him. I did it for like 200-300 euros, 500 euros. No problem. I did it for the sport. I did it to prove to myself that I can do this, to challenge myself. That's what it was about to me.
Do you feel that sort of mentality and that approach, Artem, is what's helped you in your career and got you a stage now where you're a globally known fighter and you're in a position where you can now earn and demand good money to fight? So do you feel that attitude's helped you get to this position?
Absolutely. I've built a brand essentially. Everybody knows that, I will always take the fight. I won't give any hassle in negotiation for the fight. They just send me the name and I say yes. I will always bring the fight to them. It's never going to be boring. I've never missed weight. It's part of your brand. Making yourself, good to work with and making sure your fights are exciting. That definitely has helped me. Because when the fans see my name on the card, they know what to expect. You don't have to think twice, what I'm going to do in there. They know exactly what they're in for.
I know that when I've obviously been in changing rooms with you and stuff before and had fighters on the same card as you and stuff. I know any time you're on the card, whenever my guys are fighting, we don't always watch the fights after the show or whatever, but we're always like, fuck, Artem's fight, we need to watch Artem fight. And that's the type of fighters you want, man. It's like, you can't miss this guy fight, something will happen here. And he's going to go and it's going to be a fight. I think that's like the highest compliment you can get when other fighters want to watch fighters.
100%. Yeah, thank you so much, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people always, they worry about the record and this and that, but I guarantee you guys, give it another 5-10 years and no one is going to give a fuck about the record, because the record is only looking good when you're allowed to parrot, when you're allowed to pick and choose your fights. If you want to see what happens in an actual real competitive environment, just take a look at the Premier League, where you have 20 best teams competing against each other, and you will see that at the end of each season, even the champion has losses. Even the champion has 5-6 losses. And if you look at like somebody, let's say number 10 and below, they all have more losses than wins. You know what I mean? But so what? They should just retire, or they're not good? No, it's just that's what happens in a competitive environment. When you are competing with the best on a regular basis, somebody has to lose, and that's just the reality of it. And I just cannot wait till the point comes in our sport as well, where people just watch it for the appreciation of the sport and the skill and don't give a fuck about these records. It's already going that way slowly, but I feel in the next 5 to 10 years, no one's going to give a fuck about no records anymore.
I think Thai boxing's more like that. Like you look at the top Thais and it's like maybe 150 wins and 70 losses and stuff like that. It's different for MMA, and then even boxing again. Like boxing, obviously, you're getting these guys and not fighting anybody until they've had about 35 fights. So the records are even more padded than MMA. But I know even Sanchez lost maybe 50 fights or something.
Exactly. There you go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what? Somebody going to tell me he's not a good fighter? Are you out of your fucking mind? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's just the reality. If you're going to fight real fights, well, then that's going to be, you're going to have losses. That's just the truth.
Yeah, I mean, fans as well don't remember records. If you ask a fan what Robbie Lawler's record is, he probably won't remember. But if you ask him about the Robbie Lawler Rory fight, they'll remember that fight. They'll remember the exciting fights, the fun fights, less so the records.
Exactly. And to me as well, like the biggest thing to me was before, like when I was just kind of looking at all these records and going, I looked at other sports, even not, let's say, team sports. Let's look at other, where it's one-person sports like golf, tennis. Can you show me one undefeated tennis player? Can you show me one undefeated golfer? No, but I can show you 1,000 undefeated boxers. Thousands. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what the fuck is going on? I mean, just even logically, why don't they just fight each other once? If at least they fought each other once, that's straight away half undefeated guys gone. You know what I mean? But they just don't do it. In boxing, the best guy is not who fights the best guys who can avoid the guys better than the rest.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I don't think there's any football team in the world that's undefeated. It is a unique thing to combat sports, that keeping that undefeated record. It's strange And I think it's something I don't like to adopted from boxing because it's so prevalent there, isn't it?
That's why they're not letting me into boxing yet. You know what I mean? They don't want me to expose them motherfuckers. Because I did this for MMA, for a lot of time I used to be called the prospect killer. And I used to be online fucking calling everybody out. All the guys with padded records, man, I used to go after them trying to fucking get fights, messaging Ian Dean and all other, matchmakers throughout Europe saying, give me that guy, give me that guy. If I seen somebody pull out on them, last minute I was always willing to step in. Not many of them accepted, the fights, but those that did, found out what it's like to be in there with me.
So would you like to then, if you're going to be making a pro debut, ideally would you like it to be against Paulie Malignaggi? Just to get in there and play by his rules?
That would be good. That would be good. That would be a really sweet thing. Imagine beating him at his own game. Wow, that would be just incredible. And to me, he's not. What is there to be afraid of fighting Paulie Malignaggi? His whole style, he's never been known as a puncher. He hasn't got much power. He was technical. He was he had good footwork. He moves a lot. But in terms of going in there being afraid or anything, there's nothing to be afraid of. I'd fight him any day, no problem. So. Yeah, definitely. That would be a good fight for me. But American, I like my chances against him as well. Look, he's very fast and more technical than me. There's no question about that. But he's very, very chinny, and I just need one or two shots and that'll be it. And then once you land on him once, he just falls, he just doesn't want to know anymore. Yeah, I've seen some of his latest fights, he's been doing really well. He's winning the fight. Gets hit once, that's it, game over. And I fancy my chances to find that one shot against him. So I'd love that fight as well.
So we'll just finish on this with you, Artem. So is it safe to say then that we're going to probably be seeing you fighting bare knuckle in a boxing ring and probably back in MMA as well at some point?
Absolutely. I want to fight, I want to do K1 as well. I want to do boxing. I love to fight. When I first started, I remember my first 12 weeks, I had 4 fights in my first 12 weeks. And I wanted more, there were just no fights available. I was looking for fights where else, who else? But there just was none more available. So right now, once their show's on, this Corona is out of the way, I'm ready to go,
Yeah, perfect. Well, listen, we appreciate the time, mate. Appreciate you coming and having a chat with us. Obviously, stay safe, man, and we can't wait to see your next fight, mate. Thank you very much for joining us, Artem. Hey guys, so that was Artem Lobov joining us on this evening's podcast. Always good to speak to Artem. Always entertaining. And like we said to him, look forward to seeing his next fight. So James, a few other things have been going on. I think we'll start off with Khabib Tony. So it now looks like Khabib's in Russia. That fight looks like it's not going to happen, but from current reports, it seems like Justin Gaethje's been offered the fight. At this point, if it's not going to be Khabib Tony, do we really just is it better for the UFC just can this and stop try to get a fight to us?
I don't think the problem's Dana White. I think it's became like a crusade for him doing it. It's like I'll definitely put this on. I'll fucking show you as I can put it on and whatever else. But they should have just canned it when they canned everything else. They've just extended the travel ban and the quarantine over there, I think, to the 30th of April, so that's another month. I know, because that's probably going to affect Danny's fight on the 25th. We're just waiting on clarification of that, but they should have just pulled the entire card. I think for what I hear anyway from people is he's messaging about looking for to put a fight card together. And they came up with some idea of putting probably the biggest card of the year together if they could, I think, and try to get Francis Ngannou and stuff on. But it probably should have just patched it. But Dana White's a successful man because the way he is, with his perseverance and thinking he knows better than everybody else. He's probably the best promoter in the world, to be fair. If he puts on a show, people's going to watch it, especially when there's not a lot else on to watch now. But I would have patched it. Imagine he puts on Gaethje and Ferguson and Gaethje smokes him. Like, then it kills the Ferguson fight that everybody wants.
Aye, it's crazy. I mean, he's fighting against an unprecedented, in our lifetime, global pandemic. Government shutting their countries down. I think the only country that's no shutdown is Belarus, because they're basically saying, like, I just drink some vodka and exercise, you'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? They're about the only country that's no shutdown. And I think there was a K1 show in Japan, I believe. I think they were advised not to go ahead with it. So I don't know, man. It just seems like, but this is probably not the time. Just don't cancel the fight. Just reschedule it when the world isn't in absolute chaos. Know what I mean?
It makes more sense just to reschedule shit. It'd be easier in the long run for everybody.
I mean, there is still stuff going on. I think you had Submission Underground went on. That was on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.
Now I watched some of that, and they've done something that I found baffling. Right, so they've obviously not wanted to shake hands, so they've bumped elbows, then proceeded to grab each other and grapple. What's the point?
When we first heard about that in here, there was people doing this like elbow touching, and then you turn away and look round, and there's a guy on the other guy's back with his hand in his mouth trying to smother him. You're like, for fuck's sake. But it's weird, and I think Chael Sonnen was commentating for a different building as well. So there's a few events going on, but obviously not much is happening. And I don't know. I don't think Tony Khabib's happening now. And why risk it? Why risk it? I would agree there. I don't see the point of putting Gaethje Tony on. I thought Khabib was in America. I don't know. I thought he'd have been at AKA for his camp and whatever, and then it wasn't until I seen, what, maybe a day or two ago that he's still in Russia. I was like, oh, that's not happening.
Right. I saw people online, like, I think Dylan Dennis and stuff like that. Obviously, Dylan Dennis is Dylan Dennis. He'll do what he does online and have a go. People having a go at Khabib online on him. They're saying, why are you back in Dagestan or Russia? Well, obviously he's got a family. It's a global pandemic. Where else would you want to be? So I don't see any issue with him getting back there, because I think his obviously family comes first, isn't it?
Aye, that's the way it should be.
Absolutely. And also we've got, I don't know if it's MMA fighters and stuff in general, and boxers are all going a bit stir crazy at the moment, but we've had John Jones, obviously, he's been the big one, caught under the influence out in his car with a gun. Then we had, was it Leslie Smith, caught stealing.
Ashley Evans Smith.
Ashley Evans Smith, sorry.
Leslie Smith, I know Leslie Smith, she's dead nice.
Sorry, Leslie Smith, I always do that. Ashley Evans Smith out caught stealing for a buzz. We had Mike Perry knocking guys out at nightclubs. And then we had Billy Joe Saunders making videos about domestic violence. What the fuck is happening in the combat world?
See, to be honest, that stuff would be going on anyway. It's only you're just noticing it because there's no fights hiding it. That's much just what fighters do. They're extremists. Fighters are not. They're not normal people. Like normal people don't put themselves through the process of getting ready for fights and then get into a boxing ring or a cage and beat the shit out of each other for a living. It's not a done thing. So these things don't really shock me too much. I think the Jones one's a disappointment. It looks like he'd got his shit together, and then it turns out he hasn't. But he's obviously battling and dealing with some stuff in there. But you never know what's going on. But I seen the video and stuff like that, and all I can think when I was watching the video was like, do they not have breathalyzers there? They're like, they're trying to test if he's under the influence of alcohol, making him do that walking on a line and touching his nose and all that shit. And you're like, this is a super athlete. He can do that with fucking lots of stuff in his system. I'm pretty sure he'll be like walking a straight line. Like,
I don't get the field sobriety test. Why not use a breathalyzer? Obviously, it's a bit. Here, you basically really can't really drink at all, then drive. I don't know what the rules are in the States, but so I think the report went. An officer had heard a gun being fired. It came to a location. Jones was in the car, and I think there was somebody else there, and they saw a gun sitting, and I think it was a bottle of tequila that had been drunk, and then Jones said he'd planned to drive again. It's weird.
Sorry, man. There's an article I read actually about an hour ago saying that the arresting officer had been investigated for some kind of racial stuff. He'd been investigated for kind of some issues with racism anyway. So I don't know if that's Jones's defence, his lawyers and stuff, starting to kind of attack the credibility of the guy that arrested him, maybe try and get my way with this or something. But that was the first thing I thought when I read it. I was like, he's obviously got some really good lawyers and they're going after this cop. But if you watch the video, the cop was actually quite fair with him. He did know who he was and stuff straight out the gate, but he's obviously famous in that area that he lives.
The problem with Jones is just, obviously, he's been out on social media, he's talking about the current coronavirus situation, he's telling people to treat it seriously, blah, 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 and then he just does the exact opposite and worse, everything they just said. And the problem with Jones is it's not the first time, and I don't think this is the worst thing he's done, which speaks volumes. Are we getting to the point with John Jones where people are just going to start writing him off just as I'm not a good person?
I think a lot of people have done that already. I think you forget the guy's like a UFC world champion at 22 years old. Like the pressure and stuff that comes with that's incredible. He just such a talent that young, and everything that's came to him so quick. It's not an excuse for the way he acts, but the guy's obviously got issues. It's one thing after another with him, unfortunately, and his legacy is going to be damaged because whether it's the sadder stuff or the stuff that goes on outside. But there's some talking on some of these other podcasts and stuff where they're like it's that kind of wild side of him that makes him the fighter that he is, which is probably true to a degree. But there should be somebody handling him. Like you look at guys like even Mike Tyson back in when he was coming up and stuff. He was fine until his coach, Customato, passed away, and then he went off the rails after that. But John Jones doesn't seem to be anybody kind of looking out for him and that for it. They'll let him train, they'll take a percentage of his earnings and whatever else. But the coach's role should extend to outside the gym and outside the livelihood. You know what I mean? They should be trying to help that guy. Whether they can or not, like, so I don't know, but they should be fucking trying. If he needs help, he needs help.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's Jones's because of who he is and what he's done. There's obviously a lot of maybe yes men, not necessarily at the gym, but could be in his social circles and that. People who are kind of the hangers-on that you get when you gain a bit of celebrity and wealth. But he definitely needs somebody that maybe says to him, listen, maybe going out drinking and driving with a gun during that global pandemic isn't the best idea. It's crazy. We're going to talk about Mike Perry. You saw the video. What do you think of the video?
I guess Mike Perry being Mike Perry, isn't it? We hung about with him in Nashville for a week, and my first impression was I remember him fighting against a Korean guy, and remember his corner had been caught making kind of racist remarks about the Korean guy. So I was like, this guy's a douchebag. But then when I hung about him in Nashville, when Stevie was there to fight Joe Lozon, he was actually really cool. He was like, we went to the hot tub every night at the hotel for Stevie as part of his weight cutting process. And Mike Perry was like, what time he's going down there? And we were like, 8:30. And then every night without fail, he turned up, jumped in the hot tub and just like chatted away. And I've been working on this kick, I've been doing this. And he was actually really, really sound, I think. But you know that if you put him outside a nightclub and somebody's pushing his buttons, then he's going to react like that, which, again, most fighters that I've dealt with would to some degree. I think if he'd been a jiu-jitsu guy, maybe took the guy down and subdued him a wee bit, but he's just a puncher, and he's a big puncher, so he just banged the guy. But that's if you mess about with a guy, I don't imagine he'd have done that for nothing. Someone's provoked that.
Well, I think what you didn't see in the video, and I think Perry came out and said it, was the guy had tried to punch him beforehand. So that's where I take the fighter's word. I take Mike Perry's word for it on that. And I mean, if you're going to start throwing punches at a high-level UFC fighter, and you're just a guy out at the bar, maybe who works a 9 to 5, then you're probably going to get knocked out.
It's something these guys face, but like when they go out and they get in kind of social settings and stuff, there's always going to be some idiot who fancies their chances when they're drunk or do you know what I mean? They're not thinking straight. This is from personal experience. I remember being out, and I don't really drink. Never really socialise that much either. But I remember being at occasions and stuff like that, and people would like at the time, he's a professional fighter. He's like a champion fighter, and you get guys, you could see them looking at you at the start of the night, and then as they get drunker and drunker and drunker, you could see they're like, I'm going for I can fight. I'll show him taping. But it must be so bad for some of these UFC level guys, and especially guys like Perry, who's quite outspoken and stuff like that as well. But I think a lot of fighters get that, man. You either get guys kissing their arse and whatever else, or you'll get every now and again you'll get somebody who fancies their chances with them, especially when they're drunk. And what are they meant to do? They meant to walk away, and then the guys run about telling everybody a part of Mike Perry, or they shot it for me, or do what Mike Perry done and just put the guy in his place.
Well, I think there's a lot of fighters the guy could have probably messed with and they would have walked away, but I would certainly put Mike Perry in a short list of guys that you definitely don't want to. Probably Stevie Ray would fall in that list as well.
Aye. Well, Danny Henry obviously still works on the doors, and he's got guys coming up to him. And they know who, in Edinburgh, he's obviously well known. He's the only UFC fighter that's ever come out of Edinburgh. He's one of only 5 out of Scotland and whatever. And he gets guys, he stands on the door with a cup of tea, and he'll get guys up, getting at the talk and whatever else. So these guys are getting it. But there's definitely there is a type of guy that you don't chance your luck with, and Perry falls into that category.
Aye, absolutely, and it's a almost no-win situation for the fighter. Don't get me wrong, Mike Perry done something a lot of fighters wouldn't. He probably got ahead of the curve and posted it himself.
That's smart, but as well.
It is. Actually, that's what I was going to say. It's probably smart that he puts it out, gives the first impression, and gets to say on it, this is actually what happened. It's probably a smart move to do it.
It was smart. I mean, kind of related story, but I remember being at a fight show in Lanark. It was Sport Fight. It was a show we promoted, actually. And there was some trouble after it, and the door staff managed to get it outside. But one of it was MMA and kickboxing fights, but one of the kickboxing coaches there had went outside because he'd seen one or two of his kickboxers scrapping with like some other crowd. And I can remember him, I'll not say the guy's name, but I can remember him going out the door shouting, somebody film this for YouTube, and he just waded into them, right? He just started dropping guys left, right and centre. But it's like, just that actual mentality, like instead of I better go and help my guys, it's like somebody better film this, it's going to be pretty cool. He's using nice technique when he's dropping these drunk guys who are just like pushing and pulling and swinging, and he's just like popping people with hooks and crosses, and it's pretty cool.
so we're almost like a wee bit of training.
Aye, get this film for YouTube. Everybody's got flip phones back then, like flipping the phones up, trying to catch it.
You can't do anything now. Everybody's got really good cameras on them, so you can't get away with it. There's always people filming it.
Slide up and push a button.
It's weird how society that's became a reaction. See, there's so many videos where you see people filming stuff. You think, why are you actually filming that and not actually helping or doing something?
I've discussed this quite a bit in here with some of the kids for school. Like, they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, there was a fight at school today. Do you want to see it on my phone? And I'm like, no, really, I didn't want to see it on my phone. I'm like, what happened there? And they're like, oh, this kid's getting bullied. And I'm like, well, you're just as bad as these guys with the bullying. If you're sitting filming it, and thankfully the kids in here are all they're decent kids. If they see anything like that happening, they'll stop it, and they'll definitely not stand and film it anymore. Like, you see some of these videos on social media, and they're fucking heartbreaking. Like, some of these kids getting bullied, and it's like the kid that's getting bullied's mum's putting up saying, I need names and whatever else, and they're getting, it drags everybody into it, where you're getting people threatening people and whatever else. But it's just the current way society is, isn't it? But I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
And sometimes when you see people filming and that as well, it's like, I think, why are you filming? And I think, you know what, it seems to be a cultural thing now.
It's just one thing to do.
I mean, at my school, it wasn't, at worst case, you got nobody filming, you would just get a circle. big circle with everybody around. Don't get me wrong, there wouldn't be folk helping. They just wouldn't be filming because the technology wasn't there. So I guess it's kind of just the same thing. It's just we've got technology's a bit better than it was when we were at school.
It's just different, man. This something like a 21 Pilots gig at the Hydro last year, and it was his first gig, sold it, and the bands came on and stuff, and I've turned around and he's got the camera, he's got the phone out, and I'm like, put that away, like you're here to see this kind of experience it live, and somebody else will have it filmed and you can see it on YouTube, you'll be fine. But it just like his first instinct was to get the phone out. I'm like, that's not what this is for. Like you're here to see this live show.
It's weird that, because then they're there live to watch it, but they almost instinctively are watching it through their phone.
Yeah.
By filming it, it's a very, very strange. Maybe we're just getting old, mate. Maybe that's what it is.
Definitely a bit of that, I think.
I think we're getting old. I don't know. I think this lockdown might age us as well.
I think I might become this better than I went in. To be fair, I'm getting skinnier.
We've got to discuss one last thing. Talking about fighters and how stable they are, let's discuss some of the haircuts at a high level.
This was always going to happen. I think they forget they've only been locked in for a week. What they got to do next week? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we've got Kieran Reid, who's been he's not went full bald. He's almost been a trendsetter. And I don't know, what is it? A kind of almost attempt at a bowl cut slightly. I
think one of the boys in here, Jason Woods, has got that haircut. He's rocked in with that, and he quite suits it. He's quite a stylish young guy, and I don't know if Kieran's just thought I'll have a bit of that. And it's just kind of spiraled. The rest of them just went full blown skinhead. Eyebrows, Stevie, but
I mean Stevie, I don't know if he had a look, but it did become apparently obvious when he posted the picture that the eyebrows had 100% been plucked. They were bright red.
He looks like an absolute psycho, and I was like, fucking keep that for your next fight. That looks tremendous. He looks like a nut job.
So we'll get fighters cutting their hair, doing their eyebrows. We'll get fighters knocking guys out of clubs. We'll get Scottish fighters doing 1,000 burpees. We'll drink whiskey and beer, Aidan Stephen. I'm wondering what the end of week 2 brings.
It's going to be interesting. People are the first week starting to wear off a wee bit. Okay.
Aye. People are probably getting to that point now where they've probably drank a lot more than they would normally. And the reality will kick in eventually that we're probably going to have this for more than 3 weeks as well. This is going to be, I guess a lot of the benefit for us is we're probably going to get we'll get a lot more material coming out to everybody watching the podcast.
Aye, it's been making, started talking to people that probably wouldn't get enough time to speak to and stuff like that. I started looking at old fights and stuff like that as well, and you've got to take positive stuff in and try and keep being productive. But it's mental.
It sort of keeps you a wee bit sane as well. But we'll just need to see. We'll see what comes up. See if there's any more developments in the MMA world. I think after Tony Khabib, unless we get a few more fighters going crazy, I think the MMA content might dry up. So we'll see what happens with Ferguson Khabib. But I think ultimately, that fight is it's not going to happen in the near future.
Nah, it looks like it's going to be kiboshed, I think.
Yeah, obviously as well as we're doing these shows, keep us updated on your how your cooking's going and how you're developing there.
Lindsay took over the day and cooked, unfortunately, so I'll try and do something tomorrow.
Well, you can keep us posted, but obviously thanks everybody for tuning in to the show. As always, we appreciate it. And we say it every episode, but please, it does help us a lot. Pop onto the YouTube channel, subscribe to the show, and obviously go to the Higher Level Facebook page, Instagram, and hit the like buttons there as well. But as always, thank you very much for your time.